Today we underline, in the clearest possible fashion, that international law and the laws of armed conflict apply to everyone. No foot soldier, no commander, no civilian leader, no one can act with impunity. Israel, like all states, has the right to defend its population. It has every right to ensure the return of hostages that have been criminally and callously taken. Those rights, however, do not absolve Israel of its obligations to comply with international humanitarian law. Intentionally causing death, starvation, injury, and suffering to the civilian population, including so very many women and children, are criminal means to achieve military and political goals.
Phil Rucker is here joining us from the Washington Post, of course, national editor, the co-author of 2 books on Donald Trump, A Very Stable Genius and I Alone Can Fix It. Phil, did you come across Robert Costello in your reporting?
Andrea, Robert Costello has been a lawyer sort of in this orbit for a number of years. I believe he represented Michael Cohen and was sort of somebody that Cohen could go to for help navigating this world.
But he was connected to Rudy Giuliani as well.
That's right. He also represented Rudy Giuliani and in fact, in some instances, I believe, spoke on Mr. Giuliani's behalf.
Phil, I'm just curious, in terms of the politics of this case, I know we're getting into the weeds on testimony and who they're calling and the nitty-gritty on certain phone calls and when they were happening and when they weren't happening, what might have been discussed. The larger picture, though, and is not whether this case is going to turn out to be a conviction for Donald Trump or not, but what it might possibly mean for the election. What is your sense of whether this is landing or whether people are paying attention at all?
Well, just one thing to keep in mind at the outset of all of this is so many Americans have fixed views of Donald Trump. The universe of voters who are truly persuadable here, who might have their opinions about Trump changed based on this trial, is very, very small. And then you have to wonder how many of them are really paying attention to the hour-by-hour turns in this saga here. I think we'll have a much clearer picture after there's a verdict, and there can be some fresh polling at that point. We might have some sense from anecdotally interviewing voters and in focus groups in some of these key states to see whether the verdict ends up changing any opinions at all. But my gut tells me it will not change that many minds just because so many people know so much about Trump and already have such firm opinions about him.
Does it change the way Donald Trump campaigns? Does it change the way President Biden campaigns if Donald Trump is a convicted felon?
When they debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Well, hopefully they're scheduled to be debating next month, and I think it certainly does change the dynamics around the campaign. I mean, if Donald Trump is out there running for office as a convicted felon, that's something that I think Biden will be talking about regularly and will be part of the biography, part of the narrative of the Trump campaign. And I also think it might change how Trump campaigns because he'll campaign even more so as an aggrieved victim, as somebody who argues to his supporters that he was wronged by the criminal justice system and he needs to be reelected in order to fix it all. And so I think it could really create a different dynamic between these two candidates.
We are anticipating this week to be the final stretch in Trump's New York criminal trial. His attorneys say they expect to wrap up their questioning today, could be at any time. Then the prosecution can choose to ask Cohen a second round of questions. He is their final witness. After that, if they choose to do that, the defense then presents its case. Former Commander-in-Chief talked on the way in today.
All of the things you saw over the last 4 weeks, most of it should have never even been brought up. And then on top of that, there's no crime. And we go on day after day, and I tell Iowa, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it. I tell New Hampshire, sorry, I won't be able to make it. I'm sitting in an icebox all day.
Senior correspondent Eric Shawn is live for us outside the courthouse. Eric.
Hello, Harris. Well, it turns out he not only lied, but also stole money from former President Trump. In cross-examination, Michael Cohen exposed as a thief today.
This case should be dismissed. It should have never been brought. And the judge is highly conflicted. He's a corrupt judge. He's highly conflicted. He's totally corrupt. And he's interfering with an election.
Well, Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, back on cross-examination. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, again elicited more admissions damaging to Cohen's credibility that he stole money from the Trump organization. Testimony showed that Trump paid Cohen back for spending money to rig an online poll that favored Trump. So Cohen was reimbursed for $50,000. But guess what? It turns out that he only paid the polling company $20,000, and he pocketed the rest, keeping $30 grand for himself. And when Blanche asked Cohen if he lied about that, Cohen said yes. Meanwhile, President Trump's lawyers want to call as their first witness Bradley Smith. Smith is an election law expert and former chairman of the Federal Election Commission. Smith has said that the payments to Stormy Daniels do not count as campaign contributions, as prosecutors claim, but personal expenses, and that could undercut a key part of Alvin Bragg's case against the former president. Smith has compared Trump's case to the 2012 prosecution of former Senator John Edwards. You may remember that Edwards faced similar charges of spending money on a mistress, but his trial ended in an acquittal and a mistrial, and Edwards got off. We don't know if the former president will testify at this trial, but for the first time today, a large group of protesters who are against him converged on the courthouse.
Trump is not above the law.
While those chants were heard to hear out on the streets, they were not heard inside the courtroom. About 30 of those protesters are still here, mingling with some of the pro-Trump protesters, yelling at each other every once in a while. But other than that, it's quiet. This trial continuing. No session on Wednesday or next Friday, but the judge has set next Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day, for closing arguments. So the jury could get this case next week. Harris, back to you.
Eric Shawn, thank you very much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
This case is shameful, and it is taking an enormous toll on Julian. He is under enormous pressure. He has been in Belmarsh prison for over 5 years. The judges reached the right decision. We spent a long time hearing the United States putting lipstick on a pig, but the judges did not fly it. As a family, we're relieved. But how long can this go on? Well, everyone in this room understands that the political configuration in the United States will, basically determines Julian's freedom or imprisonment. And we don't know what will happen. During the Trump administration, there was much more enthusiasm, including in the way that that administration talked about this prosecution.
want to say this very clearly. I support peaceful, nonviolent protest. Your voices should be heard, and I promise you I hear them. It's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's why I've called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting. Bring the hostages home. And I've been working on a deal as we speak, working around the clock to lead an international effort to get more aid into Gaza.
The issue is that Biden in the past has indicated that the student protests related to Palestine have not shifted the way that he views the situation in Gaza. And so that kind of leads me to believe that some of what he said about advocating for a ceasefire was lip service.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer live in New York. Iranian state media is reporting there are, quote, no signs of life seen at the crash site of the helicopter that was carrying President Ibrahim Raisi and others. News of Raisi's death comes nearly 15 hours after the helicopter crashed in a remote part of the country during dense fog. Rescue efforts have been hampered by bad weather and tough terrain. A number of other top officials, including the country's foreign minister, were also on board. The chopper was heading back to the country's capital when it reportedly went down. The crash comes at a fraught moment in the Middle East with the war raging in Gaza and weeks after Iran launched a drone and missile attack on Israel in response to a deadly strike on its diplomatic compounds in Damascus. Hardliner Raisi became president in a historically uncompetitive election in 2021. Previously, the Chief Justice, he has overseen a period of intensified repression of dissent in a nation convulsed by youth-led protests against clerical rule. Again, if you are just now joining us, Iranian state media is reporting there are no signs of life seen at the crash site of a helicopter that was carrying President Ibrahim Raisi and others. News comes nearly 15 hours after that chopper was first to be reported crashed. And of course, stay with Fox News Channel as we learn more about this breaking news story.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.